Good morning. It's 27 degrees in Abuja, the nation's capital. Welcome to your daily dose of sunshine, Sunrise Daily. I'm Maope Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. It's 27 degrees here in Lagos as well, but already feels like 33, and God knows what the day is bringing. Today is April 23. It's the 23rd day in the month of April 2025. The year is progressing, and I know you're counting down. Some of you are counting down. Not you, Mark. Anyway, where are you taking us this morning?
You're not telling us what people are counting down to. What do you know that people are counting down to?
I cannot reveal my sources.
I don't want to say what they call us, but hey, let's move on now. We're going all the way to Niger State, where we have a really beautiful scenery to show you this morning. Something that is really a sight for sore eyes, especially when you're looking at it from above. Nigerians will say, well, we wish that this will give us a little more electricity so we can see it properly. But it is what it is. This is Kainji Dam, all the way in Niger State, north-central Nigeria. Niger State is currently in the news for a number of reasons, some of it around security, but the governor of the state recently stirred some controversy around the directives he's given for security to keep the state secure, and it centers around dreadlocks. I recall my colleagues on the morning brief, making a meal out of it. But never mind. This is what we're looking at, and it has nothing to do with dreadlocks. It has everything to do with electricity. It's the Kainji Dam. It was built between 1964 and 1968 and is meant to generate 960 megawatts of electricity. It's unclear if it now generates more or less, but certainly the site continues to remain really pretty, especially when you're looking at it from this point of view. Ayo, what do you think?
Well, for a facility that dates back 1968, it definitely is looking pristine and well taken care of. I mean, those who are old enough would know that back in time, the only thing you heard when you hear electricity in Nigeria, most of the time the only thing you hear next is Kainji Dam, and it's maintained its place in history, so to speak. And the fact that it's not looking as old as it is something that we should commend the federal government of Nigeria for. Constructed then at a humongous cost of more than $200 million from information available. It is definitely looking well kept. Let's just hope. What I don't know, Malkwe, is whether or not it can increase in its capacity. But trust me, as you said, this is the skyline. We're just enjoying the beauty of this national treasure that dates back 57 years.
Well, I really do wish that we could just focus on the north-central region of Nigeria and all the beauty that it holds. But clearly, there are people who are not interested in the beauty and are determined to make it an ugly spot. They're determined to make sure that not just Niger State, but most of the states in the north-central region of Nigeria, from what we can see, because what does one make of the fact that there has been attacks in Plateau, then shortly after we see attacks in Benue, now we're beginning to see it in Kwara, and all of these states are around the north-central region of Nigeria, the food belt, the major food basket of the country. Big questions around what exactly is going on, which is what we'll be focusing on this program very, very shortly. But the National Security Advisor is not taking things lightly. He recently visited the governor of Benue State and had quite a lot to say, as did the people he went to meet. Here's how it went down yesterday in Benue.
It was a Black Friday for the people of Benue State as suspected herdsmen attacked Ukum and Logo local government areas of the state, killing 72 people on a day Christians worldwide marked the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. The attacks sparked public outrage, prompting the National Security Advisor to visit the state. Some traditional rulers expressed their fears just as they present their demands.
I alone for my local government, I take stock of daily killing, the mass murder. The total population as of 17 April 2015 is 598. Simply tell Mr. President, here in Benue, there is a legislation against open grazing, and we have activated that. Our sister local government, called Gwani local government, had a terrible massacre on Christmas Day. On the Good Friday, which was about 4 days ago, Ukum had horrible massacre on Good Friday. We don't want to look at it as coincidences. These are calculated attempts to wipe out the people.
Governor Alia highlights the impact of insecurity on farming and food production in the state.
Guma is one of the most productive local governments on agriculture in the state. And if they've been so badly hit as the Sankara axis comprising Sena Ala, Ukum, and Logo local governments, that is the headquarters of yams in the state and in the whole world. Benue counts as #1 producer of yams in the entire world. And that is our headquarters where we have the yams. So if we're talking about food insecurity in the nation, and right home here we're experiencing its shortage, then it means it's not a good omen.
The NSA then restates the federal government's commitment to end the killings.
I'm here on the directives of Mr. President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to give his own direct condolences, commiserate with you, the good people of Benue, to assure you the country is with you. He is with you. We want to give you the assurance, Your Excellency, that the federal government of Nigeria is with you. We will work together. We will address this problem together. We will fight and we will defeat it.
The need to change tactics is admitted, just as calls for communities to arm themselves is rejected.
It's not just Nigeria that has been a victim of this type of things. Many countries in the world, many of the countries have lost the fight against these evil people. Sudan today do not have government. Niger today is a military government. Mali is a military government. Burkina Faso is a military government. Today, in our country, I believe that we are not doing badly, given the massive nature of the problem and the challenge. There is no part of Nigeria today is controlled by them. We have done fairly well. We are not yet over. Issue of security or insecurity is not an issue that you can instantly say you will address. We appeal to Nigerians to give us understanding.
As the federal government moves to address the insecurity bedeviling the nation, residents of Benue State are optimistic that the killings will abate to enable them pursue their livelihoods without fear.
And really, that's what's at the heart of it. For people to be able to pursue their lives without fear of being mowed down, sometimes in broad daylight. What precisely can be done? We've heard the NSA make reference to this being an international problem. Do we know who the perpetrators are? Is this a new wave of terrorism now affecting Nigeria? Directly impacting the north-central region. Precisely what exactly is going on? Well, this morning we have Mr. Kabiru Adamu, who is a security expert, joining us on the conversation. It's good to see you again.
It is good. Unfortunately, the topic is not so good.
Sadly. But this is where we are, and it would seem that over and over again, you know, we have to bring this matter to the fore. We'll experience, will I say, a quieting down, and then all of a sudden, a resurgence. And the resurgence oftentimes takes us by surprise. We lose people in their numbers. As a matter of fact, you understand that in Benue State now, about 85 people have lost their lives in the last 5 days. And so it really have a lot of people wondering what precisely is going on. From what you know, what would you say is happening around the Plateau to Benue to Kwara belt? What exactly is going on?
With all sense of responsibility, Mokwe, as you know, I head an organization, Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, and part of what we do is we have a database of security occurrences, and we produce products from that database. Now, at the end of the March, we produced our first quarter report, and interestingly, Benue did not feature as part of the top 5 states that are most affected. Neither did Plateau State feature. It was more Borno, Niger, and Katsina State, as well as Zamfara. Point I'm trying to make is this problem is multifaceted. It has spread across several states in Nigeria, and because we've not addressed the drivers and the triggers of insecurity, as it were, sadly, they have become institutionalized, and in certain instances are actually expanding. In that period, we recorded almost about 3,800 deaths from January to March, end of March 2025, and then over 2,000 kidnapped for ransom incidents.
Did you say 3,000 deaths?
Yes, in just 3 months. Okay, so it is worrisome, and I'm hoping that the Thursday meeting that the president is going to have is going to be a full-fledged National Security Council meeting. No country can lose up to 3,000 of its citizens within 3 months and not convene some form of high level. The National Security Council is the highest organ that we have for managing public security. That meeting, I'm hoping the Thursday meeting that I'm here, it's going to be held, should not be an ad hoc meeting. It should be a full-fledged National Security Council meeting where we discuss these drivers and triggers of insecurity. Otherwise, we have a monster that is beginning to eat up our national polity. The kind of conversations I'm hearing from different players is a conversation that is extremely worrisome, and I don't blame them. A lot of them are worried, they are confused. So the narratives they are giving is an understanding of what they feel is the problem. But in my honest opinion, and as a professional, each of those problems may be right in itself. But what is best for us in such a circumstance is to come together as a people. All of those problems, put it in a basket, and then start to address the major cause. And what is the major cause? A failure of public security. As a Nigerian, okay, you should be able to start your car, drive back to your home, drive from here to, maybe Lagos or wherever, and you shouldn't be bothered, irrespective of your religion, your tribe, your gender. That it's a very simple ask from the government, and it's doable. The solutions have been proffered. We just need to put them in a basket, and then we hold those that are responsible accountable for implementing those solutions.
You know, I watched yesterday the news at 10, and I was listening to the fact that the first 15 minutes of our news was talking about insecurity in almost every part of the country. There's no part that hasn't been affected in one way or the other. No part has been spared. And as I kicked my car this morning, coming to work, I said, this is now a luxury. Some people cannot afford to do this where they live. Just start your car and say, I'm going to work, and know that, okay, all things being equal, God willing, I will come back home safely. Even if anything will happen, it will not be because somebody just decided to, shoot a gun.
Yeah. It
is very worrisome that this is what our citizens now have to go through.
And I I feel the pulse of the people. Like you said, 15 minutes, and it cuts across all the platforms. Your platform, other platforms, almost entirely that first 15 minutes is dedicated to discussing security. But we need to move from there, Mokwe.
Yeah, but you've just spoken about drivers. Some people say maybe this is more than drivers. Right now...
Drivers and triggers.
So you now have the governor of Plateau State speaking to an agenda. He says this is a genocide. You hear the leaders, the political leaders or traditional leaders in Benue State saying there is an agenda to wipe us out. You know, so you now begin to ask, is this about just, you know, is this about poverty or inequality? Is there an attempt somewhere for some people to get rid of some people and occupy their territory? Is this what is going on?
They may be right in their perception of the challenges, but when a governor speaks in that manner, the first thing that comes to my mind is he has the responsibility to protect his people as the executive governor of the state. And then I ask myself, has he done enough in terms of, you know, putting in place the necessary infrastructure to protect his people? And in most instances, Mokwe, with all sense of responsibility, they haven't done enough. I always like to give the example of Lagos State. Lagos has a near excellent public security system that has layers. There is no other state in Nigeria that has that. So when a governor sits back and kind of, you know, passes the bulk to another party, I am not very comfortable about that. Let him do what he's supposed to do first. Even if, for instance, it's about land grabbing, the question I ask is, what has stopped you from titling the land? As in first step, title the land, and then even if somebody grabs it, tomorrow the owner of that land has a document to show it's my land. So first, it's a deterrence, and then secondly, it allows you to know who owns what within your state. Now, they haven't done that. The second thing is the infrastructure, the platform for public security. We should, in Lagos State, and it's experimented, nobody told me this, I saw it. If an incident happens in Lagos, the security structures in Lagos can deploy within 7 minutes. Now, it just didn't happen out of the blues. It's because they put certain things in place. Now, in Plateau State, the complaint I hear repeatedly is that the topography is bad. Some of these locations are difficult to access. But for God's sake, that's a failure of governance. If you know you have a local government that does not have infrastructure, that you cannot access, it needs you like 20 minutes or 30 minutes to the nearest police formation. What have you done? What kind of structure have you put in place to support public security in that location? Or who are you waiting for to do that? So this is my point. They need to take responsibility for the offices that they are holding and protect the people in a manner that allows us to now go after the enemy. And it may be true that the enemy is an outsider. It may be true that the enemy is inside, but the responsibility for identifying and arresting that enemy is on the government. And the moment we turn the public pulse that I'm hearing now to that area of conversation, I think the happier it will be for all of us. Because it's not you and I that will go and arrest that person. It's the responsibility is on government, whether at the federal level or at the state level. And I think the earlier they start doing that, the better for all of us. The narrative that I'm hearing right now, honestly, the only thing it would lead to is more disunity. And we don't want that. I keep on saying, and people don't want to hear this, most of the conflicts we have in the northern part of the country are identity-based conflict. There are two or several groups of people who are trying to pursue disparate interests. And where those interests clash, you see the kind of conflicts that we're having.
And then you now have suspicion and distrust. So when you say everyone come together, it's a very, I don't know how to put it now, it's a delicate thing, because for you to come together, you must trust that all of you have the same interest at heart. Here we were a few years ago when we heard a former chief of army staff, very well respected in the country, still very, very influential today, Lieutenant General T.Y. Danjuma, asking his people to arm themselves, defend yourselves, and saying that the security was compromised at the time. Today, he's restated that call, a little more toned down this time around, but nonetheless still asking that citizens be allowed to defend themselves. If this is not included in the conversations that are being held, do you think are we really going to make progress?
I'm not supportive of the call for communities to defend themselves for the simple reason that those who are making the call have not done, I mean, there are layers. Why don't you start with reminding government of its responsibility? And this is the point I'm trying to make. The first layer of responsibility is with government. If we come to a state where some people are, like the respected retired General T.Y. Danjuma, to say that government, quote and unquote, quoting him, government has failed. Because by him saying people should defend themselves is an admittance that government has failed. And I don't want to reach that stage, Mokwe. We are in a democratic system. If we come to the acceptance that government has failed, then perhaps maybe during elections we should reflect that we are not happy with that. But never, and I would never support that we should push the responsibility to communities. Let's do the right thing, which is to demand for accountability from those that govern us. It is their responsibility to protect us. Mokwe, let me remind us that in the 2025 budget, the provision for security is higher than any other sector, higher than health, higher than education. It's about 3 point, if I remember well, about 3.7, because the budget was think trillion. The next one you hear is about 1.7 trillion. And Mokwe, that's not all. When we deconstructed the budget and looked at the provision in MDAs, the provision for security votes to state, we're talking of 6 trillion naira to security. So how can I sit here and say I would not want to hold those that have the responsibility for security accountable? I think that's the message.
But do they have to be mutually exclusive? Can they go hand in hand? Because on the one hand, yes, we'll hold government accountable, and we ought to hold government accountable, but clearly I don't want to say it has failed, but it is failing citizens where it cannot protect them. I mean, 80-something people dead in Benue alone. In Plateau, we're looking at over 100 people dead. You just spoke to 3,000 people having died in the first quarter of this year alone. These are human beings, lives, what we're talking about here. Shouldn't we get to the point where we say, look, while we're putting infrastructure in place, citizens must be allowed to, communities must be allowed to protect themselves.
Mokwe, we're not even putting the infrastructure in place. All I hear is discussions and conversations. We need to turn the narrative to one of accountability, so that the necessary, this can be done. We're not asking for, a rocket science, a new development. The assets that are required to protect the public are already there. We just need to deploy those assets. Let me give you an example. If we go to community policing, we've had a community policing policy in place for how many years now? What is stopping us from implementing that? There are two components to that. The community policing committees, which have already been almost inaugurated across the country. Then the constabularies that have almost been recruited. But for some odd reasons, our political class is preventing that from being implemented. And so my point is, let's hold those that are responsible accountable. I agree that as a secondary measure, communities can defend themselves. But the danger with that is, like I said at the beginning, this is an identity-based conflict. So imagine a situation where the perceived enemy is the other group, the we and them situation. So the we now gets weapons. Let's say they get AK-47s to protect themselves. Is the them now also going to sit back? They're also going to get AK-47. So honestly, it's going to be a situation of chaos. And my worry with that situation is the perceived enemy, the real enemy rather, not the perceived enemy, the real enemy is now somewhere in the middle, laughing. So why don't the two come together and then address that common enemy? We're not having that conversation yet.
Well, I think Ayo has questions for you.
Well, thank you, Mokwe. One of the first questions that comes to my mind is many times it will seem, Mr. Fubara, that when we talk about insecurity in Nigeria and when we're talking about government and who is supposed to do anything about it, we're always looking only at the federal government. And most of the time we tend surreptitiously, maybe inadvertently, or maybe negligently, to ignore the responsibility of the state governments in this. Even the state governments themselves are calling on the federal government. You just cited Lagos now, and that Lagos has a system in place where, I mean, within 7 minutes, you said, there's a response. irrespective of its humongous population and its own logistical challenges as well. Does it seem to you like we do that, like we excuse the governors and heap all of the responsibility of securing the citizens of Nigeria on the federal government alone?
And rightly so, Ayo, sadly, because at the moment, the Constitution places security within the exclusive list. And so the average Nigerian kind of thinks about that when he's, discussing security. And most of the armed security departments, ministries, departments, and agencies are within the federal purview. Yes, states have created structures, and in some instances, they've backed those creations with legislation. But the reality, as it were, is that as at today, our Constitution places security in the exclusive list. In real terms, however, we've woken up to a reality where there is no state in the country that does not have some form of security structure. The only challenge is that while in some states, like the example I gave of Lagos, those structures are effective and to an extent efficient. Outside of Lagos, I doubt if there's any other state that has what we would describe as an effective or efficient systems. They've created structures, sadly, that are not effective. Some are doing much better than others. An example is the Amotekun structure that was created. In terms of intelligence gathering, I think they're doing quite well in that regard, but that's just one component of a good public security system. The response capability is also absolutely important. No matter how good your intelligence is, if you do not have response capabilities, then that's a huge challenge. So for a state that has difficult topography, it has to have a system that allows for response in a speedy manner. And then in complex environments like what we have in the north, let me use Plateau State as an example. Plateau State has common borders with Bauchi State, with Taraba State, with Kaduna State. And sadly, most of these border areas are forested and in some instances mountainous. So whatever Plateau State does, if it does not extend a handshake to these other states where they're able to share intelligence, where they're able to, in some instances, carry out joint operations, then it would not be successful. And I think this is where we are at the moment. So in simple terms, people may not be wrong when they perceive security as a federal institution, but we need to move from there to now have a decentralized security system that recognizes the role of the state and, more importantly, that recognizes the role of the local governments. And this is why I must commend the Bola Tinubu administration for attempting to have an autonomous and functional local government system. And I think the state governors need to accept this, embrace it, and give some level of security responsibility to these local government chairmen once that structure is also functional. Because most of the drivers and triggers of insecurity are actually at that level of governance. They're not even at the state level, they're at that local government level.
You know what's also
they were
interesting,
able to address it. And there are case studies, Ayo.
My apologies. What's also interesting is the local government administration that I just spoke to now is the opinion and perhaps even the strategy of the governor of Jigawa State, whom when we spoke with him, he said the way he addressed it, and he would advise anyone to do it, was to engage the locals. I mean, you tell us all the time, security consultants, that all insecurity is local. Why call the federal government on? Why wait for the federal government? You said it just now, and you've repeated it time and time again, that Lagos State government decided to do something, even though they didn't have all of the apparatus of security. There is some form of collaboration, there is some form of system put in place. And this didn't just happen, just as you said. It's taking administration after administration in one state to get that done. Now, the governor of Jigawa State also says that the way he dealt with it was to consult. And we have heard from previous governors of the various northern states that they needed to collaborate. And you just spoke to it as well. Why hasn't that been happening? Because unless that happens, unless there's that sit down with the governors, among the governors by themselves, I wonder when we're going to put an end to this.
Exactly, and I think this is where the public discourse at the moment needs to shift to. We need to shift from, the constant complaint about insecurity to now demanding for action from the necessary places. State governors would need to be more intentional. I would urge perhaps that they, maybe at their next governors forum, ask the Lagos state government to do a presentation to them, or ask expertise from private players. I'll be happy to support that, where they do some form of peer-to-peer learning. What is it that Lagos is doing right that has created the right environment, as it were, in Lagos? What is it that Jigawa is doing that, in spite of the fact that almost all the other northwest states are being affected by insecurity, Jigawa has remained relatively, secure, and Kano as well. So some form of peer-to-peer learning. But point I'm making is we need to also put pressure on the governors to start a functional and intentional system of public security. It's not about buying vehicles, because that's really the go-to for governors. They buy vehicles and donate those vehicles to the police. That can be good, but it must be put in context. Security has about 6 layers. The vehicles are only supporting 1 layer. There are several other layers that the governors can do. Of course, our role too as citizens, we must buttress that. We can't support good public security. Those triggers and drivers that I've spoken about, it includes the value system that has almost collapsed. Families who no longer guide their children, as it were, to understand good and bad, and children kind of grow up with embracing criminality. And all of that, schools that encourage criminality, as it were, religious places of worship that encourage criminality. And somebody may be wondering why I'm saying that. If somebody steals money and comes to donate to you and you don't question that, you are more or less encouraging criminality, or even honor him by giving him the front pew or the front row to sit. All those are ways of encouraging criminality. So we must, as a people, also support all of this, in spite of the fact that the responsibility at the moment is placed on the government.
All right, Mr. Adamu, how much of it
forward to that meeting that will hold tomorrow, from what we understand? Today is Wednesday, tomorrow is Thursday. The NSA has already paid a visit to Benue State. Is unclear where if he'll be visiting anywhere else today.
I hope he goes to Zamfara. I hope he goes to Katsina. I hope he goes to Niger. I hope he goes to Kaduna, because these are also conflict hotspots in the country. Visits may be important to condole and show sympathy, but what is more important is to stop the killing. Okay. I've listed about 4 things. I don't know if we have time for me to quickly just mention them. So I've listed 4 things that I think we can do to improve public security. Number 1 is to have a professional, well-resourced police and security architecture that is locally rooted but nationally accountable. Number 2 is a conflict-sensitive governance that addresses land dispute, political marginalization, and resource competition, which is happening especially in the north central and northwestern part of the country. Number 3 is a justice system that is fair, fast, and credible, so that people don't feel the need to take the laws into their own hands. And then number 4, civic education and dialogue platforms that help bridge divides, not widen them. If we can do these 4 things, I'm hoping that the meeting tomorrow is not an ad hoc security meeting. I hope it's a National Security Council meeting, a proper one, so that the administrative tools can hold the outcome of that meeting and develop tools that they can now use for accountability purposes.
Mr. Kabiru Adamu, thank you so much for coming on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
He is the CEO of Beacon Consult and also a security expert. Well, we take a break at this point, and when we come back, we'll be going all the way to the south-south region of the country. Rivers State is still very much on the front burner. What is happening there? Details in a moment. Please stay with us.
We are pained by this undemocratic act. We categorically reject and condemn the declaration of state of emergency in Rivers State. This action is not just unconstitutional, but provocative, illegal, born out of individual interests and not of the interests of the entire Rivers people. and represents a blatant perversion of justice and a deliberate assault on our democratic values. There is no justifiable basis, either security or legal reason, that warrants such an extreme and authoritarian measure, because Rivers State is known for her peaceful disposition before and now, despite the face of opposition. The suspension of a democratically elected government outside the provision of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, amounts to coup against the people. Such action violates the principle of federalism and the rule of law.
And so it is that we've seen that the citizens of River State have not kept quiet in the face of this emergency rule imposed on them by President Bola Tinubu. The women especially, I think, is worthy of note that mostly women groups have come out to express themselves about how they truly feel with the emergency rule declared on their state. We've seen women groups for, we've seen women groups against, but we've mostly seen more of women groups against the emergency rule in the state, and that's one of the latest ones that you just heard there. Yesterday, though, there was some interesting development noted with what is in connection to River State, but not exactly in River State. This is about a purported meeting that was said to have happened between the governor, the suspended governor of the state, and President Bola Tinubu in Europe. This is what the Punch newspapers is currently reporting, is right there on the front page of the paper. It's not yet clear if that meeting actually took place, you know, and what effect it will have. But this is what we're hearing a reputable media house reporting this morning, that the governor of the state and President Bola Tinubu had a meeting. But how can this issue be peaceably resolved? What exactly must take place? Because the president imposed this, some people say, as a preemptive move. From what we now hear, the former governor of the state say, and minister of the Federal Capital Territory, he was seeking an outright removal. But it does appear that somehow, however it is you look at this, there is some preemption here. We have this morning Mr. J.K. Pele, who is the founder of TAF Africa. He's right here in the studio. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you,
on the program.
Good friend.
And we also have, yeah, we're going to have a conversation about that. You know that.
Yes, you go.
We also have Mr. Ken Okolubo, who is a public affairs analyst, joining us virtually. Mr. Okolubo, it's good to see you as well. Let me start with you. What do you make of this purported meeting? This meeting, it's unclear if it, I want to believe it happened, because I do not think that a reputable media house would report something that didn't happen. Do you think, what exactly do you think should come of it, you know, when eventually it is confirmed by the presidency that this happened?
Well, if that meeting happened, it's a welcome development, because the truth about it is a lot of us have felt Governor Fubara has gone about this whole issue of River State wrongly. I particularly spoke about it right from 2023, when he first of all had the confrontation with the House of Assembly, and the House of Assembly was allegedly bombed and eventually was pulled down by Governor Fubara. I thought he didn't play the politics very well, because by the time he got his advisors to tell him to say that the House of Assembly only existed because of him and him himself alone, that because he recognized them, that was why they were in existence, I thought I was taking it too far, because even if the House of Assembly members had purportedly decamped to another party, it was for the law courts to pronounce on it and not for the governor to take a decision himself. And so for some of us, we thought his advisors were putting him on the wrong track. He did not play the politics of trying to draw the members of the House of Assembly close. He rather went on a 3-member House of Assembly who have passed 2 budgets, Budget 2024 and Budget 2025, which the Supreme Court has declared as illegal now, which can amount to an impeachable offense, gross misconduct. The worst thing you can do is spend money that was not appropriated for. I have been in government, I have served as a commissioner, and I know the implications. And so if he has gone to meet the president in London now, then he's looking for a peaceful approach towards it, because the president might be able to call him and the members of the House of Assembly again to find a common ground. And I thought the elders of Rivers should have been the ones, those of them from the different local governments where these members of the House of Assembly are from, should have been the ones who have been able to try to cement a relationship between the legislature and the executive. The legislature is the most important aspect of a democracy. And when you try to operate without them, just like the Supreme Court described him, it amounts to being a despot. So it's a welcome development. It shows that he wants to start politicking, which is the most important aspect of what he has not been doing before. And it will allow Rivers State to move on. Rivers State is a very important state in Nigeria. It has a whole lot of the mineral resources, and a whole lot of the oil companies have their headquarters in Rivers State. That is how important Rivers State is to Nigeria. And so this protest and counter-protest, we might see a break if he starts this politicking. Because if you look at it, 6 months after now, he's going to return back to office. He's still the governor of Rivers State. He was only suspended. They'll be back to status quo. The House of Assembly members will have to pass that same budget. They'll have to pass his list of commissioners. They will have to do a whole lot. And so the relationship between himself and the House of Assembly has to be cemented to move forward.
Well, Mr. You have always advocated that this should never have happened. You've not been happy about developments in your state. I don't know what you also make of the news that the governor could have met with the president.
No, I would want to say point blank that if Fubara had gone to the UK to meet with the president, I'm not surprised. It is in his nature to toe the line of peace. And everybody that knows him knows that that's what he stands for. That's what he wanted. That's what he wants. And so he's been pursuing that. So he's been pursuing peace in capital letter. There's no doubt about that. Now, when people try to make comments and look at a reasonable issue from an effect perspective instead of addressing the cause, we don't really move forward. You can blame Fubara for all you care, for all the issue. Don't also forget that there is someone who started this whole trouble, and that is Nyesom Wike. There's no doubt about that, And so whatever the issues are, whatever the circumstances we found ourselves, they are resolvable. So if he's towing the line of peace, trying to talk to the president, who I believe have the wherewithal to bring this whole thing to an end, if he's reaching out to him, looking for peace, that's the right thing to do. Nobody should blame him for that. I don't blame him for all the woes, no. I don't also exonerate him totally for some of the issues. We need to be balanced. The important thing is, which has always been my position, is that both Wike and Fubara, by the way, I'm from Opobo, so I can say he's my kinsman. I'm not going to deny that, So both of them have to understand that it is the people that both of them are trying to have power over that suffers the most. And whatever two of them needs to do to settle their scores, so that Rivers people can move forward should be done. Anybody who comes on national television to put the blame on him totally is absolutely wrong. I think there are things that he did well, and there are things that he's also struggling to repair. You know, the important thing here, the bottom line is, are we going to allow this to continue? No. Should our people take the laws into their hands? No.
What changes?
Should there be a breakdown of law? No.
What I want to ask you now is, what changes should be made? What changes do you hope to see? Because it's really unclear. You know, the president said 6 months at the first instance. We do not know how quickly, but the people of Rivers, you know, have been agitating that they do not want emergency rule. That
we never wanted it in the first place.
They want a democracy.
Yes.
From what we read, we hear he's going to make concessions. But some people will say, isn't he making this from now a very difficult place?
Who is going to make concession? Fubara?
Yes.
Well, while he's making concession, he has to be very careful that the people fighting him will also make concession. There has to be a balanced concessionary measure for us to move forward.
What are the concessionary measures?
Well, leave the man to run the government. There are people who are trying to remote control him, control the resources of the state, hold on to political structure of the state. You know, that has to stop. For Fubara, the rule of law, obeying the rule of law, ensuring that he carries along the House of Assembly members if, on one condition, that their situation, the present state that they put themselves is defined by law. I don't even believe that the Supreme Court judgment actually gave us a clear court path on the issue of whether they have decamped from PDP to APC.
The Supreme Court said there was no evidence.
Well, there are a lot of evidence. Evidence number one. Mark, where I'm coming.
No, I'm just saying, because you say you're not sure. I'm just saying that from what we read in the Supreme Court
let me give you the evidence. The evidence is in the document that the president gave Fubara to sign. Number 3, it was so clear that he has to agree that they have decamped from PDP to APC. Why do we see the truth and we want to embellish it?
Let me go to Lagos.
Evidence is on the video that they have made. Evidence is on the admittance. Evidence is on the withdrawal of the affidavit they swore, which is perjury.
Let me go to Lagos now. I know that Ayo has some questions. Ayo.
Thank you. Well, let me go to Mr. Okolugbo, who's joined us virtually. You know, Mr. Okolugbo, at the end of the day, it's all about the people. These protests and the whole spate of governance in the state, in Rivers State, how significantly do you think the emergency rule is directly affecting the people? Mr. Okolugbo, the question is for you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me well?
I can't hear you.
Okay, don't worry. We'll come back to you. I'm pretty sure you'll hear me soon. Well, let me bring that question to you, Mr. Pele. How significantly do you think this emergency rule in Rivers State is affecting the people directly?
Brilliant, very brilliant question. Ayo, listen, as a public analyst, I didn't want to just sit in Abuja and trying to analyze what is happening in Port Harcourt. I've made several trips, and I didn't make several trips to go and stay in a hotel. I made several trips to walk on the streets of Port Harcourt, had interaction with people, asked questions, people who are for and against. The people are being suffocated. It's like we live in a state of anarchy, quagmire. The people don't have and don't know what tomorrow holds for them. That's what is happening. And I also have called several times on the president that at the end of all this whole fiasco, he needs to deploy doctors to Port Harcourt and look at the mental health of the citizens in Port Harcourt The children are asking their parents questions. What is happening? Why are the soldiers all over the place? You know, the consistent, and we're talking about Fubara not having a budget. The sole administrator don't have a budget, and he's spending public resources with impunity. You know, so we have a case of people being really stiffened, people being suffocated, people don't know what tomorrow holds, and there is a growing agitation for the president to end this injustice. That's my description of what is going on in my state. This is pure injustice, and we need to end it so that we can all together build this country that we all believe in. There is no doubt.
Okay.
I am a proponent for peace, and that peace should continue to reign. But we have been pushed to the wall.
It's really important,
it is not
Mr.
fair.
Pele, my sincere apologies. It's really important to get that perspective so that the federal government and even the sole administrator himself will know. I just wish we'll be able to speak with the sole administrator himself. I don't know if Mr. Okolubo can hear me now. Confirm if you can, because you know there are those.
I can hear you now.
Thank you so much. There are those who are wondering. We are on the outside, so to speak. So people are. We're just talking about Rivers State, talking about, you know, the men in the news, but we don't know how the people themselves on the streets, in terms of their economic power and all of that, how are the people coping? Are they restful or restive about the emergency rule in Rivers, in your opinion?
Well, in my opinion, I think the president did act well in, first of all, imposing the state of emergency. The reports that are available to the president are not always available to us, the security reports. You know, it's easier said than done. Some of us from the South also know a whole lot about what is happening on the streets of Rivers because we have loads of friends there. A couple of people are not happy, just like you can see that they have expressed themselves by way of protest and counter-protest. But the quick way to stop this is for them to find lasting peace. This idea of wanting to always blame it on the FCT minister, I don't speak for the FCT minister, so it's not like one is not trying to be objective, but it's for us to face realities. If you decided to take power from a man, you became the governor of a state, and people did help you to become governor of that state, and you have climbed up and you decide to destroy that ladder. How would you come down from that ladder? The same man you served for 8 years is the same man you have said now you cannot tolerate. He has anger issues, he's too domineering. He has had all these tendencies, I'm sure, by the time you were working with him. And the only way to find lasting peace is to go back to the drawing board where you started from, because everybody now that is contributing to the issues of Rivers State, we're not part of the initial agenda when the decisions were taken by those who had the structures of the party to hand over the governorship tickets to Fubara. Yes, Fubara might not have done badly in terms of the processes that he has carried in terms of infrastructural work that has gone on in Rivers in the midst of the crisis. But he would have done a lot more if the crises were not there. And that is why it is important that he must come down from his high horse. He must stoop to conquer. It's not a matter of concessions now. The Supreme Court judgment was very clear. Choma Iheme wrote a detailed, almost 8-page judgment on the defection of the 27 lawmakers. And that has been settled. Whether anybody likes it or you don't like it, it's a Supreme Court judgment, and you cannot question that judgment anymore. So what it means is that for the next 2 years, Fubara is going to be serving with these members of the House of Assembly. And so he would have to deal with the members of this House of Assembly. So anybody giving him any other advice, do not just want peace to reign. The important aspect is to cut short this state of emergency. It's for Fubara and the House of Assembly members to embrace peace. They must show us that they show of love. They must come together, irrespective of their differences at this point, to say, look, we must move the state forward. There are certain agreements that will be reached. How do we pass the 2025 budget? Maybe if we need to pass it again by the time elapses. How do we move on the issues of commissioners? How do we move on the issues of board appointments? How do we move on the issues of the critical infrastructure projects the Rivers State needs? Those are the aspects that they should actually look at now, and not continue to, you know, fight.
Okay. All right, I think it's a fine place to leave it, Ken. We have to say thank you to you for coming on the program this morning. We wait to see how the matter will be resolved, particularly with this piece of information that we've just heard that the president did meet with the suspended governor Fubara. Well, we have to thank you once more. Ken Okolugbo is a public affairs analyst. He joined us virtually. And Mr. Jake Pele, thank you so much for always coming
thank you,
on the program.
And I don't think Fubara is on top of any horse that he needs to come down. Fubara has shown humility in the midst of frustration. I don't agree with that.
I just wanted to say that, yes, you're still my very good friend. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Jake Pele is the founder of TAF Africa. Well, that's where we leave the program this morning, this beautiful Wednesday morning. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Maokwe Ogunyusuf.